The biggest name in free agency made a decision. Paul George has agreed to a 4-year, $212 million max deal with the Sixers. That's according to Woj. He leaves the Clippers to join fellow All-Stars Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey in Philadelphia on a roster that really has undergone a complete overhaul this offseason. The busiest man in the business is back with us now. Woj is here. So Paul George was the key name in free agency. Several teams were in the play as of yesterday, and your reporting, it jolted me out of a snooze at like just past midnight out here on the West Coast. Woj, so how did he end up in Philadelphia here?
I mean, start with this simply, Malika, the fact that the Clippers were unwilling to offer him a 4th year on a new deal. They got Kawhi Leonard done at 3 years, just under the max, and they wanted to get Paul George done in the same neighborhood, and he wanted that 4th year. And I think without a trade veto power in your deal, which only one player in the league has, and that's Bradley Beal. Nobody wants to give that out again. What you worry about is if things go wrong in LA, you sign at that lower number in 3 years, and then you get traded, you could end up in Philly, except on the Clipper contract, not the 4 years, $212 million that he was able to land with the Sixers. I think those were all elements of it, but the chance to go to Philly, it's obvious the group he's walking in there with, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey. It's going to be hard to have a lot of talent around them. We know what it looks like when you pay 3 players like this, but they were able to keep Kelly Oubre. I know Paul George was excited about that. And listen, this is a little bit out of Paul George's element to go to Philly, a hardcore Eastern city, a tough city for any athlete to play in, but there's high reward here and a chance like the Knicks are doing, loading up at that wing position to take on the Boston Celtics. Certainly Philly got one of the very best in the NBA. And now, Paul George, walks into that cap space in Philadelphia, and they went back and forth for months with the Clippers, and they just were not going, they just felt they were not going to pay a player at 37, 38 years old upwards of $60 million. They just couldn't put a team around a player at that age to have any belief that you'd be able to win. Well,
the potential high reward that you mentioned, Woj, it's reflected in the odds. The 76ers, they were 12-1 to win the title before the Paul George agreement. Now, with your reporting, that has dropped all the way down to 8-1, which is the 3rd best in the NBA, behind only the Celtics and the Denver Nuggets. We're going to get to the Denver Nuggets part in just a little bit. But Woj mentioned it. It's sort of an arms race, right, to keep up with the Celtics, the Knicks, the Sixers. They all spent a ton of money this offseason. We're going to get to the Clipper side. I know you're champing at the bit to get there, Rich, in just a little bit. But I do want to stick with the Sixers for just a minute here, Zach. The addition of Paul George, that puts them where in your mind in the Eastern Conference?
The Celtics are still the bar.
Yep.
The Celtics are still the measuring stick. But this big three is tailor-made. It's about as good of a big three in terms of positions. They don't overlap at all. Offense, defense, all of it. It's as good a big three as you're going to find in the NBA right now. And it's a good fit. Now, though, they actually have to build the team. And part of the reason that Boston is still the measuring stick and still the bar is Philly does this every year where they just remake the entire team. And at some point, the lack of continuity has a little bit of a cost in building your team. And look, health is always an issue with Joel Embiid in the playoffs, sometimes an issue with Paul George. And like those two guys, to be a little generous, their playoff track record is checkered. And it's going to be put up or shut up time for both of them.
Record?
If
that's really generous.
It's real. Well, look,
no, I just like the record and checkered rhyme.
Look, the health is part of it. Joel's been hurt in a lot of playoffs, a lot of freakish injuries. There were parts of that Knicks series in crunch time where he did not look like he wanted the ball or had the confidence to take the big shots in big moments. And, it's going to be put up or shut up time. This is the team. This is the moment. This is the time. You're not going to have chances like this. They had the upside to win the championship. They did not have that before Paul George. But, look, Boston is still here. Everybody is chasing Boston.
Zach, he was playing on one leg and averaged 30-plus.
He was amazing.
Okay,
He's
but
incredible.
I'm saying Joel Embiid was playing on one leg, averaging 30-plus. And Boston not just setting the bar for the Eastern Conference, they're setting the bar for the league. They're the NBA champions. But when it comes down to looking at what the 76ers team already look like, and I know they got to fill in some blanks, but the signing of Andre Drummond, bringing in Eric Gordon, bringing back Kelly Oubre, they got some pieces right now.
For sure.
Health-wise, this team could compete for a title right now. I love what Tyrese Maxey, he got his opportunity to go through his stages of learning in that Knicks series, and we saw that he could be the best player in the game at any given moment and take over a game. So, I mean, the ceiling is high. Like, I will say this, Joel Embiid is under the most pressure when it comes down to guys, at least this season. He's the guy that's under the most pressure when it comes down to superstars. And I'm not saying he got to win a championship, but at bare minimum, he got to reach the conference finals.
Agreed. Especially when healthy, Philly is the second best team in the league. I'm going to say that. When healthy. Now, Joel's got to be healthy. When you say checkered, we know what you mean. That means that throughout the point in time, you're going to say maybe 20 games. Paul George is going to miss some time.
Yeah.
But I already look at this big three and say that they have more depth and more talent than what Phoenix had last year with their big three.
Better fit for sure.
Much better fit. So even if you look at the big three and you're like, oh, Phoenix didn't have any depth. Phoenix didn't have any of the – look, Grayson Allen, they had Eric Gordon. Well, Eric Gordon's now gone. Eric Gordon's in Philly. I love bringing back Kelly Oubre. I love Eric Gordon. I love the draft pick of Jared McCain. I think he is just a young player that's going to bring energy, and sometimes you need that. Old men need young players to bring energy, and I think Jared McCain. So I love the depth on this roster already, and if I'm one of those players that's a veteran that's going to be floating around on the minimum, Philly is one of those teams I'm looking at.
Minutes are there to be had.
Yeah.
First off, the odds makers are behind because they should have the Oklahoma City Thunder way higher. That's number one. Number two, I wish it was about more than this. I wish I could do a long analysis and have great stuff. It comes down to where Joel is health-wise on April 15th.
Yeah.
He's healthy next year for the playoffs. They got a shot. He hasn't been, and that's a problem. By the way, Boston benefited this year because Giannis was hurt. Giannis has been hurt
But every
the
year,
last 2 years.
yeah, every year there's
I
a team
know.
that
I'm
benefits
just saying,
from health.
I wish it was about more than that.
Yeah.
If Joel is himself, anything is possible, but he's not been himself.
It's as Brett Brown used to say when he was with the 76ers. It's all about how the plane lands on April 15th. All right. Paul George, he is gone from the Clippers. Let's just take some inventory real quick. They did agree to terms with James Harden, $70 million over 2 years. Nabbed a starter from the finals from the Mavericks, Derrick Jones Jr. Also agreed to a deal with Nico Batum here. So, Perk, the Clippers, do you think that they have taken themselves out of contention by not retaining Paul George here?
Even if they had Paul George, they wasn't going to be in contention.
Okay.
And if I'm Kawhi Leonard, I would ask to get out of there because here's the thing, right? He knows a guy that has won, 3 NBA championships? He knows what a championship team look like, and damn it, that's not one of them. When you look at what they replaced Paul George with, Derrick Jones Jr., Kevin Porter Jr., who is the kid Chris Dunn? Like, are you serious? Where you going with that? Where you going besides the play-in tournament and then battling to get into a playoff spot and going home in the first round? So Kawhi Leonard, we talk about Joel Embiid and his health, and we talk about all these guys and like how long is their prime. It's concerning, right? Kawhi Leonard hasn't been available, and it's just not the time. I know they got to put butts in the seats, but damn it, they might have to reconsider who their next superstar is going to be and probably go into rebuild mode.
Actions over words. They don't believe in this team. They don't believe in it. They didn't believe in it, and they are moving away from it. It's going to take them a couple years to probably get themselves out of it. And it's part of the reason why they don't believe in it is the rules. The rules that have been forced on them. It was designed to break them up. The rules worked immediately. If they believed in this team, they would have re-signed Paul George for the max. They could afford to do it. It wasn't that they couldn't do it. They would have had some guardrails and they would have had some problems. If they thought that was actually going to work, they would have done it. They don't believe in it. Now they're going to take egg on their face. It's dripping off their face, down their chin, and everything like that. People are going to rip their trades. People are going to rip what's happened. They're going to sit there and take it. But it goes back to the fact that they didn't believe that this team was a championship team.
All that's fine. All that's fine. They don't believe it's a championship team. Well, they put the team together. They're the ones that put it together. They're the ones that gave away how much to bring in Paul George? And what did you leave? What did you leave with? Absolutely nothing. Somebody, panel, will somebody tell me what happened with Blake Griffin? After he signed his last contract and they showed this whole thing, we're going to have your name up in the rafters. You're the rookie of the year. We're going to have a stadium named after. We're going to do everything for you, Blake. Just come back here. I promise you're going to be a Clipper for life. What happened the year after he signed that deal? Detroit. They sent him out of there. My point is this. The Clippers have now shown a history of this. Superstar player walking away. They traded him out. So when you look at, are they going to take care of their guys? Are they going to look after the guys that have helped turn their franchise into a respectable franchise? And the answer is no. They did it with Blake Griffin. They said
that was a smart trade.
I'm not saying it wasn't, but at the end of the day, they get rid of Blake Griffin. So when superstar players start deciding, do they want to go? Do they want to go to the Clippers? What are they going to look at? They're going to look at the last few superstars that came there. I've seen it throughout my career. If you take care of superstars, a la LeBron James, seeing how the Lakers took care of Kobe, I'm going to come here at the end of my career and I'm going to give you guys everything I have. The Clippers do not look like the type of organization that if you are a superstar, you want to go invest in. That's just me. That's what the history tells us.
I knew you had your Easter Sunday suit on, but I didn't know you was going to preach.
I was planning on preaching today, bro. I was planning on preaching. When I see this stuff, I'm like, man, what is going on?
We saw that suit.
So the Blake Griffin trade led to the Kawhi and PG trades. The assets they got in that enabled those trades. And look, I think most teams would have done those transactions in 2019 when Paul George was coming off third place in MVP ballot and Kawhi had a Finals MVP. For them, 5 years later, to have won 3 playoff series and 0 since 2021, and for Kawhi to have not finished the season healthy since the bubble in Orlando is a massive, massive disappointment. There is no way around it. And Perk, you mentioned, can they pivot and trade Kawhi Leonard? The problem is they don't own any of their picks. You know who owns them? Oklahoma City still owns a timeshare in the Inuit Dome. Maybe half the toilets should go to Oklahoma City. And then the Philadelphia 76ers, not only did they steal Paul George from you, they got your 2028 pick and they got your 2029 pick via a swap. There's nothing they can do. They can't tank unless they control their own picks.
Well, who in the hell is calling the shots up?
Tell him.
That damn Lawrence Frank. And he's still in the damn seat.
How about this really quickly? If you had to invest and say, hey, we were going to move on from somebody, I would have kept Paul George and moved on from Kawhi.
If they believed in the team, like Brian said, Paul George would be on the team, because you can sit here and tell me about aprons and money and all this. You were willing to offer Paul George a 3-year deal at near what Kawhi's money, or the exact same money. 4 was the line in the sand? Okay.
At the end of the day, 5 seasons together for George and Leonard. They had 1 conference finals appearance.
The first ever in the Clippers history.
First ever, so that was for Clippers, that's success.
Right.